Morning, everyone. Normally, I'd have something like this prepared weeks in advance, but in light of some recent family events, it slipped my mind until I got the reminder text this past Wednesday. And as luck would have it, the text came through just as I was driving back from Charlie's wedding, with a whole lot of country road in front of me. And fortunately for me, this presented the opportunity to gather some thoughts while driving through the magnificent Texas countryside, alone and in silence. John 3:16, for God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whoever believes in him should not perish, but have everlasting life. Perhaps the most widely known Bible verse and arguably the most recognizable. But have you ever thought about it? And I mean really thought about it. Focusing on the first part of this verse, for God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son. Most of us are parents here, and ask yourself, could you imagine sacrificing your son for any reason, for any cause? Could you imagine sacrificing a grandchild? And I thought for hours about this and what conditions would have to be met for me to consider sacrificing one of our children. I thought about how if one was sick or needed a transplant or some type of medical procedure, and it would require one of them to give up their life for another to survive, I would not approve. In fact, I know for myself, and I assume for other parents, we'd sacrifice our own lives before allowing our child to die. Going further, I submit to you that if our child's life was being threatened, say by an armed intruder, we would kill for the safety of our child. I thought about what if by sacrificing one of our children, we could end world hunger, guarantee world peace, guarantee our family's wealth and prosperity for all of eternity and future generations. Could I sacrifice our child so that every person on earth could have the opportunity to know God? The answer to all of this is a definitive no. There's not one single reason I could think of to sacrifice one of my children after hours of silent reflection. And then I thought about God, Jesus' Father, and how he not only allowed, but watched his son suffer and die, knowing he could have stopped it at any time. Could you imagine, as a parent, watching your child suffer and die for any reason, for any cause, all the while knowing you could stop it? Again, my answer here is a definitive no. And let's say one of my children needed something to continue living and a complete stranger came along and gave his life for theirs. How could I repay that stranger? Perhaps this stranger came from a family. Well, I could take over paying their bills, look after his or her children, mow their lawn weekly, clean their house. Honestly, I'm not quite sure how that debt could get repaid, but a debt is definitely owed. But with God and the debt we own, that payment is laid out for us. To fear the Lord God, to walk in his ways, to love him, to serve the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul, and to observe the Lord's commands. Furthermore, Jesus laid out his commandment with regards to the Lord's Supper in Luke 22, verse 19. And he took bread, and when he had given thanks, he broke it, gave it to them, saying, "This is my body, which is given for you. Do this in remembrance of me." So ask yourself, if someone sacrificed their child for you, or your child's life, what would you be willing to give? Seems to me the least we can do is honor God's commandments and set aside every first day of the week to remember and honor that sacrifice, which we're about to do here and now.